I want you to really think about something for a moment, because there is a fundamental misunderstanding that plagues our society, a misconception that limits human potential more than any other factor. People often come to me and say, I am not creative. I am logical. I do not have that gift. They speak of creativity as if it were a noun, a possession like having blue eyes or a tall stature. But let me tell you that is scientifically and philosophically incorrect. Creativity is not a noun. It is a verb. It is something you do, not something you have. Just as you do not wake up and simply have focus or motivation, you must generate them. You must also generate creativity. Consider children. If I were to walk into a kindergarten class right now and ask, who here is an artist? Every single hand would shoot up. They do not hesitate. They do not judge themselves. They simply explore. But somewhere along the line, we learn to fear being wrong. We learn to conform. We stop doing creativity and start waiting for it to strike like lightning. The secret is you are already one of the gifted few. The machinery is there. You have simply forgotten how to operate it because you have retreated into what I call the cocoon. Let me illustrate this with a case study that might change how you view your daily interaction. Imagine you are on a flight. You have the aisle seat and the middle seat is empty. You are comfortable. You are hoping, perhaps praying, that nobody sits there. Then an elderly woman walks down the aisle. She looks different, perhaps a bit disheveled. Your instinct, the instinct of the cocoon, is to pull away. You put on your headphones, you isolate yourself with your music, perhaps listening to something sophisticated like Stravinsky's Firebird Suite, feeling very intellectual. You spend 5 hours sitting 5 and away from this woman, ignoring her completely. Then as the plane descends, she taps you on the shoulder. You discover in the last 30 seconds of the flight that she was actually a close friend of Igor Stravinsky. She was with him when he wrote the very music you were listening to. You see, by staying in your cocoon, by avoiding the uncomfortable or the different, you missed a connection to history. You missed a spark. And this is exactly how we kill our own ideas. The key is to understand that creativity is at its core simply the act of connecting dots. That is all it is. It is not creating something out of nothing. It is taking two distinct elements, a horse and the bar, a phone and the internet, and finding the surprising link between them. Now imagine your mind as a collection of these dots. These dots represent your experiences, the people you meet, the books you read. Here is the problem most professionals face. If you are an accountant and you only talk to accountants and you only read accounting journals, your collection of dots is identical. It is a sheet of navy blue dots, all 3004 in wide. And if you only have navy blue dots, you can only create navy blue ideas. They are predictable, they are safe, and they are utterly forgettable. To have an idea so powerful it feels illegal, you need a red dot. You need a green dot. You need to introduce a variable that does not belong. History proves this time and time again. Look at the printing press. Johannes Gutenberg did not invent the wine press, and he did not invent movable type. He simply saw two existing dots and connected them in a way nobody else had. Look at the Beatles. They connected blues, Motown, and skiffle. This is why innovation almost always comes from outside the industry. If you are inside the automotive industry, you are taught the limitations of that industry. You need an outsider, someone like Elon Musk, for instance, to look at the problem without those pre-existing limitations and ask a different question. You need to understand this. The quality of your output is determined entirely by the diversity of your input. You must become a dot. You have to consciously crack that cocoon. Instead of looking at a problem with your standard logical toolkit, you need to ask, how would a biologist solve this? How would a musician approach this? But collecting the dots is only the first step. It is the raw material, the actual processing, the synthesis of these ideas requires a specific state of mind. We often think we need to grind harder, focus more, and drink more coffee to have a breakthrough. But biologically, that is often the worst thing you can do. The brain states required for execution are not the same as the brain states required for imagination. There is a reason why your best ideas do not come when you are staring at a spreadsheet, but rather when you're in the shower or drifting off to sleep. We need to talk about how to access those states on command. We need to talk about how to turn your brain into a laboratory that works for you even when you are not consciously trying. because once you have collected the dots, you need to know how to let them collide. So now that we have talked about collecting these dots, these little pieces of the puzzle, we run into a bit of a problem. You see, you can have all the dots in the world. You can have a head full of facts and experiences. But if you don't know how to mix them, they are just clutter. It's like having a garage full of car parts, but no mechanic to put them together. The engine won't run. And this is where things get really interesting, because most of us are trying to force creativity while we are in the wrong gear. We are running around in what scientists call the beta state. That is when you are wide awake, alert, stressed, trying to get things done. But trying to be creative in that state is like trying to plant a garden in the middle of a highway. It's just too fast. The soil isn't right. The secret is you have to slow the machine down. You have to find the gaps between the noise. Have you ever noticed, and I mean really notice, that your best ideas never come when you are sitting at your desk, staring at a blank screen, gritting your teeth? No, they come when you are in the shower, or when you're driving down a long, boring road, or right when you are drifting off to sleep. Why is that? Is it the water? Is it the soap? No, it's the brain wave. When you relax, when you step away from the problem, your brain shifts down into alpha or theta states. The critical guard at the door takes a coffee break, and suddenly all those dots you collected starts floating around and bumping into each other. That is when the magic happened. I want to tell you about Albert Einstein. Pretty smart guy, right? He knew this. He understood that he couldn't just think his way to a breakthrough using logic alone. So he had this trick, this little game he played with his own biology. He would sit in his favorite chair to take a nap, but he would hold a rock in his hand. And on the floor, right beneath his hand, he would place a metal plate. He would let himself drifting down from being awake into that twilight zone, that theta state where the dreams start to mix with reality. And just as he fell asleep, his hand would relax. The rock would fall clang. It would hit the plate and wake him up. He didn't want to sleep. He wanted to surf the edge of sleep, because right there in that slippery moment between waking and dreaming, that is where the genius lies. You need to understand this. You have a supercomputer between your ears, but you are only using it when the monitor is on. You are ignoring the background processing. We spend maybe 20 years of our lives sleeping, and 3 to 5 years of that is just dreaming. Most people treat sleep like a waste of time. They think it's just a shutdown mode, but it's not. It's a work mode. History is filled with people who knew how to use this illegal power. Mary Shelley, she didn't sit down and logically deduce the plot of Frankenstein. She dreamt it. Paul McCartney, the melody for Yesterday, one of the most covered songs in history. He woke up with it playing in his head. The periodic table of elements. A chemist saw the structure in a dream. They weren't just lucky. They were using a different operating system. So how do you do it? How do you actually program this computer instead of just hoping for a random glitch of brilliance? It starts with intention. You know how if you have to catch an early flight, say at 400 a.m., you set your alarm, but you wake up 2 minutes before it goes off. You have done that, right? We all have. That is your brain following a command you gave it hours ago. It has an internal clock. Well, if your brain can wake you up at a specific time just because you asked it, what else can it do? The key is to give it a job before you clock out. Before you go to sleep, instead of scrolling through social media and filling your head with garbage, ask yourself a question. How do I solve this problem? How can I make this better? Don't try to answer it, just ask it. Drop the pebble in the pond and walk away. Questions are the answer. If you ask a different question, you get a different answer. If you ask, why is this so hard? Your brain will give you a list of reasons why it sucks. But if you ask, what is the one thing I haven't tried yet? Your subconscious goes to work. It spends the next 8 hours digging through that pile of dots you collected looking for a connection. But then, and this is where everyone fails, this is where the tragedy happened, you wake up, you are in that beautiful groggy theta state. The ideas are there. They are bubbling up like fresh water. And what do? You reach for your phone. Boom. Gone. You flood your brain with emails, texts, bad news, other people's lives. You kick yourself out of the creative state and slam right back into that stressed out beta state. You are reacting to the world instead of creating it. You have to protect that first hour. You have to be jealous of it. Keep a journal by your bed. Capture the gold before it evaporates. Because really, creativity isn't about adding more stress. It's about removing the interference. It's about asking the right questions, stepping back, and letting the machine do what it was built to do. It's not magic. It's engineering. You are engineering your own biology to produce genius. And frankly, it is a lot more fun than staring at a blank wall waiting for lightning to. Now, once you have the dots and you have the state of mind, there is one more piece, the execution. Because you can dream up Frankenstein or the iPhone, but if you don't know how to put it into the world, it's just a ghost. And this is where we have to talk about courage and being willing to look like a fool. This is where we have to talk about the thing that stops almost everyone. You can collect all the dots in the world. You can have the most diverse, colorful collection of experiences. You can be a physicist who paints and studies ancient Greek poetry. And you can have the best morning routine in existence. You can do the Einstein trick with the rock. You can write down your dreams. But it all means absolutely nothing. Zero. If you don't have the courage to look like a complete idiot, I mean it, you have to be willing to look foolish. Because think about it, a creative idea by definition is something new. It hasn't been done before. And if it hasn't been done before, it looks weird. It looks wrong. It looks like it doesn't belong. And our instinct, that cocoon instinct we talked about, screams at us to keep our mouth shut so we don't get laughed at. The secret is the best ideas always sound crazy at. There is this story, a wonderful story about a TV show back in the 80s. They had booked a huge star. I think it was Johnny Depp, but he canned at the last minute. Panic. Absolute panic. The producers are sitting around a table sweating, trying to figure out who to book. They are suggesting quarterbacks, news anchors, the standard blue dot idea. And then the lowest paid writer in the room, a guy nobody really listened to, pipes up and says, "I can do something with liquid nitrogen. Now imagine that you are looking for a celebrity guest and this guy suggests freezing an onion." The boss told him to shut up. Literally, "Shut up, Bill," because it didn't fit the pattern. But the writer kept going. He painted a picture. He said, "No, look, we freeze a marshmallow. We eat it. Smoke comes out of our nose. It'll be funny." He connected two dots that had no business being together. Hard science and sketch comedy. And because he was willing to look stupid, because he was willing to be the different dot in the room, that writer, Bill Nye, became the science guy. He changed the world for an entire generation of kids. But he could only do that because he cracked the cocoon. He didn't stay in his lane. You need to understand this. The future, the world we are heading into, it doesn't belong to the people who can just follow instruction. We have machines for that now. We have computers that can calculate faster than you, memorize more than you, and organize data better than you ever will. The logical work that is going to be outsourced, it's gone. But what cannot be outsourced? What a machine cannot do is dream. A machine cannot wake up with a melody in its head because it broke up with its girlfriend. A machine cannot look at a wine press and see a printing press because of a hunch. The future belongs to the creatives. It belongs to the dot-com connected. It belongs to the people who are brave enough to ask, what if instead of just what is? So here is my challenge, and I want you to really take this serious. I want you to do something today that makes no sense. I want you to go out and collect a dot that scares you. If you are a tech guy, go take a pottery class. If you are an artist, go read a book about quantum mechanics. Go talk to someone who disagrees with you politically. Not to argue, but just to see how their brain works. Treat people like puzzle pieces. When you see someone weird on the bus or the plane, don't put on your headphones. Lean in, ask a question. How is this like that? Because really, creativity is the only infinite resource we have. We can run out of oil. We can run out of land. But we can never run out of ideas as long as we keep colliding with as long as we keep the walls down. You have the machinery. You have the alpha states, the theta states, the dream state. You know that you need to protect that first hour of the morning. Please, for the love of physics, stop looking at your phone as soon as you open your eyes. Let your brain breathe. Let it work for you. And one last thing, it's kind of important. If you found a little spark here, if something in this rambling clicked, then you are probably one of us. You are a dot collector and we need more of you. So do me a favor. Down below there is a button that says subscribe. Click it. Not because I need the numbers. Well, maybe I do, but because you need the reminder. You need to be around other people who are asking these questions. And leave a comment. Tell me what is one weird thing you are going to do this week to crack your cocoon. I really want to know. Now go collect some dots. The world is waiting for your next idea and it better be a good one. See you next time.